under the Constitution, major agreements with other countries are supposed to be submitted to the Senate as a treaty to get 2/3 of the senators a vote. And there's very good rationale in the Federalist Papers and elsewhere why you do not take an extremely important agreement and avoid the 2/3 requirement in the Senate. Senator Corker and others worked with the administration to get away from the requirement for a 2/3 Senate vote on the Iranian deal. And they were using the cloture rules and so forth in a creative way, and ended up saying that they had gotten the agreement approved just by a majority vote. That's, as far as I'm concerned, unconstitutional. And the really best person writing on this, I think, is Andrew McCarthy, who was the prosecutor in the Blind Shake case and writes on these issues a great deal. I think what we ought to do is what Andy has suggested, is submit the agreement again now to the Congress or to the Senate for a 2/3 vote. And if people say, but that's already been done by the United States and they did it differently, the answer is the President of the United States today does not have to sign on to the unconstitutional action of his predecessor. So if President Trump will submit the agreement to the Senate, not to the Congress as a whole, but to the Senate for a 2/3 vote, the chance that they're going to get that support and bring this terrible agreement into effect in a constitutional way, I think is tiny.
Right.
So
they can't get 2/3 to agree on anything.
So let's go. Let them see if they can get 2/3 of the Senate. If they can't, this agreement should be regarded as null and void.
And one last critically important issue I want to talk to you about, which might not be on a lot of Americans' radar, but it is important for our allies in the region in the Middle East. You have the Qataris and you have the Saudi Arabians,
right,
the Saudis, and there is a real tension among these Gulf states.
Yes.
President Trump thanked the Qataris. We have a long-standing relationship with the Qataris dating back to the Gulf War. Describe for us how the United States can kind of find balance in that situation, because both have questionable issues on either side, but we need these alliances.
There's a joke that's too long to tell here, the punchline of which is, don't be ridiculous, this is the Middle East. Yes, it's a very tangled situation, but Qatar was and is our colleague and ally, and we have a military facility there and so on. The big problem was that one of the Qatari families was funding more than one of the international terrorist operations big time. And that, I think, now has more or less been cut back. And so I think we want to work with Qatar, and we've succeeded in working with them in the past. We also want to work with Saudi Arabia, because this development that the new king, and king-to-be king, is pursuing is positive. Women get to drive. Actual industrial efforts are turned on, and people can work together in factories and so forth. He's doing some useful things. He's also doing some things that are stunningly troubling, like locking up,
arresting certain people,
huge numbers of the very wealthy Saudis. But we don't have the kind of tension between Qatar and Saudi Arabia that both do with Iran, let's say. Mm-hmm. It's not bolstered by the Shia-Sunni rivalry or any of that. So I think we ought to work hard at getting along with both the Saudis and the Qataris, and help them and the rest of the Gulf states do what they really want to do, most of them, and which is stand against Iran, right, and keep Iran from taking over the Gulf.